On the 3rd of December 1998, Mark Jensen discovered the lifeless body of his wife in their bed. He informed investigators that she had been ill for the preceding 3 days, but he was unaware of the cause of her death. The initial autopsy proved inconclusive, leaving the medical examiners unable to determine how 40-year-old Julie had died. However, when the family's computer was seized by investigators, it raised suspicions about Mark's involvement in his wife's death. Mark and Julie Jensen lived in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. Mark worked as a stockbroker, while Julie cared for their 2 young sons, David and Douglas. The Jensens' relationship faced considerable challenges. In the early 1990s, Julie had a brief romantic involvement with a colleague, and after confessing this to her husband, she became the target of persistent harassment. Over several years, an anonymous person left explicit images in their home and on their vehicles, and frequently made hang-up calls. Julie diligently documented these incidents in a logbook. This ongoing harassment took a toll on Julie's mental well-being. On December 1, 1998, just 2 days before her tragic death, she sought help from the family doctor, who prescribed the antidepressant Paxil. When investigators examined the family's computer, they found searches for ways to kill a person, including ethylene glycol poisoning, a primary component of antifreeze. Medical examiners also found ethylene glycol in Julie's blood, stomach, and urine. Investigators also discovered emails suggesting that Mark was engaged in a romantic relationship with a woman named Kelly Labonte. Shortly after Julie's death, Labonte moved in with Mark, and a few years later, they got married. Prosecutors alleged that Mark killed his wife to be with Labonte and that he never forgave Julie for the brief affair with a coworker. In addition to the affair and incriminating computer history, investigators were influenced by a letter Julie wrote before her death. Approximately 10 days before her passing, Julie wrote the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and handed it to a neighbor. In the letter, she expressed that if anything were to happen to her, Mark would be her primary suspect. Along with the letter, she enclosed a photograph she had taken of a list written in Mark's handwriting, which contained items such as bag hands, own drug supply, and syringe.
She contacts us a couple days before, and she leaves us this letter. Okay? Then all of a sudden, boom, she turns up dead. I'm not making this up. This is true evidence. And here we have Julie Jensen telling me that if she dies, you're the person that did it. If anything happens to me, he would be my first suspect. I know he's never forgiven me for the brief affair I had with that creep 7 years ago. I have been doing this 15 years, Mark, and I've never had anybody leave me a letter telling me that if they die, it's this person that killed me.
In Mark's initial murder trial in 2008, the prosecution presented Julie's letter to the jury. Following that trial, the jury found Mark Jensen guilty of murdering his wife. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. However, Mark contended that the letter should not have been admissible in court because it violated his constitutional right to cross-examine a witness. He argued that since Julie was deceased, he couldn't challenge her, making the letter unfit for trial. The case reached the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 2021, which ruled in favor of a new trial without the letter as evidence. In January 2023, prosecutors retried the case and once again secured a conviction. Mark Jensen was found guilty of poisoning his wife with antifreeze, drugging her with sleeping pills, and ultimately suffocating her. The judge imposed the maximum sentence, life in prison without parole.